Connecticut Independent Democrat Joe Lieberman. He is asking Google to take down dozens of videos that have been posted on YouTube. Videos like this one.
The time has come for America to hear the truth about this tragic war.
Soldier suicides, the highest in decades.
As I agree with Dante that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who in a period of moral crisis maintain their neutrality.
The number of U.S. soldiers who've had their Iraq military service involuntarily extended under the so-called stop-loss policy is at its highest since the start of the war.
Which allows the Army to extend a soldier's enlistment, like it or not.
There comes a time when silence is betrayal.
And the one that we were showing, and again we're not going to show the conclusion of it, of the one soldier in the tank, winds up showing him shot to death by sniper fire.
The truth of these words is beyond doubt, but the mission to which they call us is the most difficult one. Even when pressed by the demands of inner truth, men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war.
In the early days of Gitmo, when the FBI was first there, they were using the same interrogation techniques that they use in the States. Shortly thereafter, the military and the CIA arrived, and they began using aggressive techniques, which some people call torture.
It wasn't just Swiss bankers who dealt with Hitler's Reich. New evidence shows that many who financed him came from uncomfortably closer to home. While war raged, there were British and American bankers who continued to do business with the Nazis.
Prescott Bush?
Yes.
Okay, he was a director and shareholder of companies that profited from their involvement with the financial backers of Nazi Germany.
The American government launched Project Paperclip, which secretly changed the war criminal files on Werner von Braun and his colleagues. Files which described these SS officers as an ardent Nazi were changed to read not an ardent Nazi. Werner von Braun, his team, and the rocket factory at Peenemünde, which had terrorized Western Europe, was transported to the USA, lock, stock, and barrel.
Early 60s, the Pentagon had an operation called Operation Northwoods. It was on the table that our military would attack certain cities within the United States and make it look like Cuba did it to justify an invasion of Cuba. Just the simple fact that they contemplated it and it was actually on the table in the Pentagon, I find that just very disturbing, that they would, even consider using our military to try to justify an invasion of another country. In light of the fact that there was a cover-up that got us into the Vietnam War, and there was, in my opinion, a cover-up of John Kennedy's assassination, I would just say that I don't believe it's beyond reason to not at least consider that the government certainly would do things.
The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Omar Sheikh, the man who murdered Osama bin Laden,
So any English-speaking infidels watching this, I just wanted to say that I'm still alive and it's very scary. So I just thought I'd just pop in to say, boo.
The CIA was willing to divulge, as you were talking about, assassination plots, but it wouldn't give up one of its most productive, valued secret operations, their use of journalists. What did you learn about journalists, about their news organizations in the CIA?
what I found over the years is an awful lot of what the CIA does is ordered by the White House in terms of covert operations and the rest.
And of course, it's not just the CIA can't do it unless they have willing accomplices. And so you had the New York Times, you had the Louisville Courier-Journal, you had Time Magazine, you had CBS, you had Newsweek, you had the Miami Herald, the Saturday Evening Post. You had a lot of publications and news outlets that were willing to work with the CIA.
Yes.
And so you had the New York Times, you had the Louisville Courier-Journal, you had Time Magazine, you had CBS, you had Newsweek, you had the Miami Herald, the Saturday Evening Post. You had a lot of publications and news outlets that were willing to work with the CIA.
Yeah.
Dennis, let's make sure we're clear on this. Fluoride gets you some teeth, some coffee, some water, some bread, some toothpaste, but it's actually a poison, right?
It sure is.
As far as JFK goes, well, I've been studying that for 25 years or 20 years, I guess, or more now, and I don't believe for 1 minute the Warren Commission. I think that it's fraudulent in the fact that if you break it down to simplistic form, if Lee Harvey Oswald is who they told us he was, this little disgruntled Marine who became a communist and decided to kill the president, then why would all the information have to be locked up in national security and kept secret for 20 years?
What he is doing is calling away the president's two most important bodyguards, the bodyguards whose job was to protect the president's back by riding on the bumper of the limousine throughout the motorcade.
And you're talking about methods such as assassination.
There was someone other than Sirhan who was shooting at Robert Kennedy. Sirhan was arrested for the crime, having been captured in the pantry immediately after firing an Ivor Johnson cadet revolver. Today, Sirhan is serving a life sentence for the assassination, but now two forensic experts say there's new evidence that casts serious doubt on whether Sirhan was guilty of the Kennedy murder.
Well, 40 years ago, New York Senator Robert F. Kennedy's presidential candidacy came to a deadly and a shocking end. There was a second gun involved.
I happened to be in Europe then on my way to Russia. I was invited to go to Bilderberg by Vernon Jordan, a friend of mine. I was talking to people who happened to be from Europe who did not give a rip about NAFTA.
The fight against the North American Union is escalating at the federal level, but at the state level. Currently, 14 states are considering legislation opposing what the administration calls the Security and Prosperity Partnership.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. Some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted. They failed both the test of our national values and the test of humanity.
There are 89 different types of anthrax, but each one has its own kind of trail. This one led directly back to our own defense establishment.
The U.S. government hiding a terrorist inside America's biodefense community.
And why is it we all of a sudden in 1980s have AIDS? Is there any connection between AIDS and the Legionnaire's disease and biological experimentation?
Fury. We were told going into Fallujah, into the combat area, that every single person that was walking, talking, breathing was an enemy combatant.
You are a pawn in the service of the New World Order. You are risking your life for a government that helped carry out the 9/11 attacks. This is not a joke. This is actually happening.
When making the case for war, administration officials distorted the facts or said things that were not supported by the facts, said things that they knew or should have known were not true.
Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I want you to get mad. I want you to get mad.
The old appeals to racial, sexual, and religious chauvinism, to rabid nationalist fervor, are beginning not to work.
You know, evolution did not end with us growing thumbs.